Today's episode launches near April Fool's Day, when we like to prank others to see if we can make them fall for something, to see if they'll be a fool. This whole approach paints the fool in a negative light, but today we're going to talk about how important the fool is as an archetype for us to work with as we walk on our own pathway toward success. This is the Heart Body Business Podcast. Inspiration, tips, and tools for entrepreneurs seeking a more fulfilling type of success. One that stems from exploring and expressing their true passion and purpose, and finding healthy ways to do so. All coupled with insights and action items to get a business moving in the right direction. I'm Steve, your host, and I invite you to learn more at heartbodybusiness.com. As we jump into the topic of the fool and how this archetype can be used in your pathway to success, understand that I'm not encouraging anyone to actually be a fool. As Thomas Tusser once said, a fool and his money are soon parted. At least financially, that's not much of a path to success. Less, of course, we gain wisdom from such a thing. But no, I'm not asking you to be an actual fool, which I think, if I could define it, is someone who thinks he knows more than he does. This could be someone terribly uneducated, which might be where our minds immediately go when we think of fools, but it could also be someone very well educated, those who are sure they know so much because of their education, when of course education makes some people about as dumb as possible, because they think they know enough, or they think that what they know is true, and they stop challenging it with new information. To me, you don't throw away what you've learned just because you're shown something new. If what you've learned has proven itself by experience, it should hold a lot of weight. But believing it infallible is a fool's mission. This is why Shakespeare once wrote, "The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool." He knows, after all, that he still has much to learn. And so, as Charles Spurgeon once said, there is no fool, so great a fool, as a knowing fool. But to know how to use knowledge is to have wisdom. And of course, it's the same with any tool. Money, talents, technology, they can all destroy us when used by a fool. They can all uplift us when used by the wise. And usually they fall somewhere in between. So how is it that we want to use the archetype of the fool on our pathway to success? Because we can use the fool's lack of knowledge wisely. Because a fool who knows himself is someone who's able to reveal new wisdom. Socrates, after all, is famous for teaching not by telling, but by asking. This is the Socratic method, where the teacher is not the knower, but the asker, the one who demands others to bring out their own knowledge, and then to demand that they rethink their own knowledge, to challenge what we think we know, to break our dependence on education or what we've been taught, and to use reason, and even to blend this with intuition and inspiration. After all, invention and bringing something new to the world from which we can find success, this doesn't happen by copying. It comes from the heart, from the muse. It takes all the tools of the mind and it bends them, reshapes them, and creates. The fool, in other words, helps us to break down expectations and assumptions. It stops us from being lazy with our worldview. And while you can use this archetype to challenge those around you, to bring out the best perhaps, especially in employees or business partners, it works equally well with you. I've spoken before about the heyoka, the concept of the sacred clown that shocks us out of our routine by doing the unordinary, the unexpected, riding the horse backwards, so to speak. This is another version of forcing us to rethink things, of considering the world and our opportunities and our motivations in new terms and seeing whether they're a good fit or whether they need reshaping. If you've spoken with many children, you've probably run into the why conversation. The child asks why, and we give an answer. The child ponders that answer and then asks, but why? And this continues as the adult seeks to provide deeper and deeper answers until eventually they're forced to say, because God, or some atheist version of that answer. The owner of a company I used to work for liked telling the story of the ham with the end cut off. A woman always cuts off the end of the ham before cooking it, and when asked why, she says, well, that's always how my mom cooked the ham. I'm not sure why. So she calls her mother and asks about it. Well, dear, it's because the pan I had was too small for the full ham. How often are we programmed to do something in a certain way and we never consider where that method came from or whether it's the best approach? The wise fool says, I don't know, and looks for answers. The wise fool asks why and looks for answers and discovers things about himself that need to change. In a similar way, the wise fool can ask questions in a business setting and force others to say things out loud. Without having to directly challenge someone, you can simply ask about something. For instance, I might have missed an earlier explanation about this. Can someone tell me why we're doing this? Can someone tell me what these numbers mean? You might believe it's something that makes no sense. You might believe the numbers are inaccurate. But you allow someone else to come up with an honest explanation, with a way that makes sense of it. You're giving them the benefit of the doubt while still making sure it's explored in the appropriate setting and then challenged if answers aren't available. Why forces a business to examine and rethink things as much as it forces us to do so personally. This is why Bruce Lee once said, a wise man can learn more from a foolish question than a fool can learn from a wise answer. A wise man can be a fool to reveal wisdom, but the fool who thinks he knows enough cannot learn from anything because he'll never hear it. As we close out this topic, I'll introduce a final line of thinking for the fool to ask. For you to ask, in the role of fool, if you're really looking to make a difference in the world. The question is, how does this help the world? In other words, can we ask questions that go beyond how we can learn and grow and benefit from something and start to ask questions about the impact on other people, on the good of our overall spiritual evolution? This looks great, but how does it help the world? What impact will it have on others? Is this the best use of my time and purpose and resources? Of course, there is time to act, to serve the world. We cannot be forever caught up in questions, for then we are disconnected from our purpose and we become genuine fools who are missing the point. But action without inspiration and reflection is equally misled. And I encourage you to use the archetype of the fool to frequently challenge yourself and those around you. It can be fun, it can be rewarding, and it's something that can often move us from the status quo toward our true purpose and success. Till next time, thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe. You can also join our mailing list to get alerts on our latest episodes and other tips, tools, and news. Learn more and sign up at heartbodybusiness.com.